Um, this is Kevin Bing. I'm the president of the Journal Square Community Association. Thank you for joining us. This is the September meeting of the Journal Square Community Association. We're using a new technology platform. This is Restream. So we should be showing up on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter all at the same time. If that's not the case, somebody let me know. Also, something else we're testing out now is all of your chat messages, your comments, your questions that you're leaving on Facebook or YouTube. I'm not sure how it works on Twitter Periscope. We'll find out. But Facebook and YouTube, it should be showing up in this chat box that we have here. So feel free to leave comments, questions below as the meeting's going on. We have 4 speakers today. So we'll make time for questions, but we're going to try and move through at a clip so that everybody gets a fair amount of time to speak, and you get to hear from all of the different speakers. So let's see. In the announcement email, we should have been sent out the August meeting minutes. I'm going to ask that those are approved by unanimous consent. If anybody dissents, please send us an email at hello@JSQCA.com. hello@JSQCA.com is our new general inbox. We used to use the new JSQCA@gmail.com. That address still works. It'll forward, but this is our new inbox for if you have general questions, concerns, specifically about the August meeting minutes or anything else. So yeah, I just want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us. So I'm going to move on. Actually, it looks like Mia just logged on. So Mia, if you're ready, we're ready for a treasurer's report.
Okay, all right. Let's see. In total, we have $39,186.15, of which in the general fund is $2,089.81. In the Bergen Arches account, it's $30,245.03. In the Bergen Square account, it's $6,851.31. And we have 114 dues paying members. That's it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. And with that, we're going to move on to our first speaker. Deja Anderson is here. She is the City Census Project Manager. And so she's in charge of making sure that our response rates gets up, everybody fills out the census, and we're all counted for 2020. She's going to do a lot better job of explaining how important the census is, but I'm going to bring her on now. Good morning, Deja.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having me. All right, so I'm going to give you guys a quick presentation on the 2020 census. The time for the census is right now, okay? So our current response rate for Jersey City is 54.1%. So we're creeping up on our 2010 response rate, our 2000 response rate. We were at about 55% for our community self-response. I just want to give some kudos to the Journal Square area. If you go on our city website, there is an active self-response map. So when you go on cityofjerseycity.gov, you'll see a little banner to the top right, where you can click for the Jersey City Census and keep up with your specific neighborhood of where your response rates are. So there's a couple of block areas where we call them census tracts in the Journal Square area that are doing great. If you look at it on the map, they're colored blue. So that means that they are responding at a rate of 50% or better. And there's about 1 or 2 little areas there in Journal Square that are still orange. So those are areas of immediate concern, which in the next coming weeks, the city and some of our census partners will also be dropping into those neighborhoods and really trying to encourage the community to self-respond. As many of you know, census takers are already out in the community going door to door and knocking. So what we really like to do is encourage you to encourage your family, your friends, and your neighbors to either respond online, to respond by phone, or to deal with the census takers when they're coming to their front doors. So what we want to do is continue to hit home that census is easy, census is quick, and census is important. It's about 10 questions. It should take you somewhere in the neighborhood of less than 10 minutes, but the impact is for the next decade to come. So when we say impact, we just want to remind people what impact specifically are we talking about. So when we get into our funding conversation, we know here that in the state of New Jersey, we pay an exorbitant amount of taxes. So for every dollar that we send down to Washington, D.C., the state of New Jersey only gets 70 cents sent back to us. All right. So the census is about that 70 cents that's getting sent back to us. Are we going to receive the whole 70 cents? Or are we going to get even less than that? All right. The rankings of states in the country, New Jersey has the lowest percentage of what we get back from the federal government. That is how critical the census is for the entire state of New Jersey, but specifically for us here in Jersey City. For our top 5 programs, so we're talking about Medicaid. Once you get over 65, everyone has to sign up for Medicaid. We're talking about our Pell programs for our students going to school, whether that's NJCU and Hudson County and St. Peter's and a lot of other programs here locally. We're talking about our school lunch program, and we understand right now in this time of pandemic that food insecurity is truly an issue. So whether it's WIC or Meals on Wheels. So for each resident that fails to fill out the census, we're being shorted a total of $2,000 for these main programs per year. And that's a lot of money that we're leaving on the table that's truly needed in our communities. We're also want to remind people that census impacts our political representation. So here locally and bringing it to the Journal Square area, we want to talk about the boundaries to what your ward looks like. It may flux and get bigger. It could shrink and get smaller. It is tied specifically to your census count. This also impacts our representation down in the State House in Trenton, and whether we turn out to be the biggest city in the state of New Jersey also applies to our census count. We are also in the last census in 2010 and the prior census to that in 2000 lost 1 seat in the House of Representatives. New Jersey cannot afford to lose another seat on our national political representation, okay? And we also want to impact that census has direct correlation to our infrastructure, roads, streets, all of our public services and things that the government provides to the community, whether it's tied directly to funding amounts or whether our census numbers, it's what qualifies us to be able to unlock access to these federal programs is truly, truly important. So again, our big ask, I know that most of you have done the census and we appreciate that. In these next coming weeks, we're waiting. We do have some federal court litigation pending. Okay, a judge has ordered a cease and desist for the Census Bureau to stop ending activities for September 30th, but we won't have a final determination on whether the census will be extended into October or will end in September 30th. I'll get that information on September the 18th, and we will continue to promote that information out in the community. But most importantly, what we want you to do is contact at a minimum 5 people, friends, family, neighbors, co-workers, club members from different groups that you're in, and remind them to fill out the census, encourage them to do so, and let them know how truly important it is. And I will stick around and be willing to take any questions.
Well, thank you so much for that. That was really informative, really helpful. We do have a question from the group. I'm going to try and put it on the screen.
Okay.
It seems all fit, but the question is any tabling being done with volunteers to get the census filled out? I know in NYC, AOC is signing up volunteers to table at busy city locations.
Okay, so we do have a form for volunteers. So that should be up on our census webpage, on the city's webpage, starting about Monday. We have been doing tabling of events, be it at local supermarkets or where people are getting tested for COVID. We've been tying a lot of census to try to meet people where they're receiving some of these services to make that connection. So we've been out at a lot of food insecurity events where they're giving out and doing food distributions. having census volunteers there taking it, okay? The only thing we just want to note is that at this point, we cannot actually go door to door. The only person that should be going door to door, knocking on people's doors and asking them to fill out the census at this point should be employees of the U.S. Census Bureau who are doing those activities, okay? So we want everyone to be super excited and do the tables. We're trying to do some more activities. So if anyone here is interested, please look out for about Monday for that automatic form to populate on there for you to volunteer, and we're going to be hitting the community strong.
Awesome.
And for me to share the city census webpage, it is jerseycitynj.gov. Okay.
Okay. And then if they want to just fill out the census directly, where do they go?
Not a problem. So if you want to fill out the census directly, it's www.my2020census.gov. Again, I'm going to give that one more time because it truly is important. That is www.my2020census.gov.
Okay. And I think I was able to make it show up on the screen. So
that is it. It's perfect.
Great. And yeah, if anybody has friends or neighbors or anything like that that still haven't filled it out, it's a good time to do it. Okay. Adam asked if you could share the census website again. We got that up. And I think we could put that in the Facebook comments. Okay. Yep. My2020census.gov. Okay. Deja, I think that's all the questions from the group. Thank you for sharing all that important information.
Please, and in the in-between, if anyone wants to email me with suggestions for activities, we are still taking suggestions to do what we can. My email is D Anderson, my last name. Again, that's D Anderson at JSQCA.org.
I'm going to try and put that up on the screen. Oh, there you go.
Yes,
okay.
please
D.
email
Anderson
me.
at JSQCA.org. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Deja.
Thank you, and guys, have a great rest of your day.
All right, have a good weekend. Okay, well, that was very informative. I'm going to move on to our next speaker, who is going to talk about another important but related issue. Michael Harper is the Hudson County Board of Elections clerk, and he's going to be talking about the changes in voting procedures, with the shifts due to COVID for our November election. So, Michael, I'm going to bring you on now.
Surely.
Hey, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's such an important election. This is an important opportunity for me because there is so much misunderstanding out there about this election. Obviously, it's different from any election that we ever had before. Being presidential just adds to the numbers and to the excitement and to the how much people want to be involved. So just to explain this election as opposed to a normal one, obviously with the COVID pandemic, some changes were undertaken for this election. This election, according, am I still up?
You're here. It's a little choppy.
Okay. According
we'll work
to the governor's executive order 176, this election is going to be held in a very similar style to the primary election. Anyone who voted in the primary election has some understanding of how this is going to be. And that means it's a primarily vote by mail election. Every active registered voter is going to receive a vote by mail. Those are starting to roll out about September 24th in that week of September. So please keep your eye on your mailboxes because you will be receiving a vote by mail. Right off the bat, let's start with why? Why is it like this? And I understand there's a lot of frustration out there, and I hear it all the time. And I hear people say to me, "We can go to Walmart, we can go to CVS, we stand online at places. We can't go vote in person at a machine like we're used to." That's certainly what we would all love to be able to do. But the reason for that is this, and this is not I'm apolitical by the nature of my job. I don't wear a button, put a sign in my window or on my lawn. I'm sure the job keeps me apolitical. I'm not. This isn't a political statement, but why would the governor do that? Well, the reason is this: heaven forbid, if this election was to be held tomorrow or this Tuesday, I would say we're in a position. Let's get these things open. Let's vote in person. The problem is, if heaven forbid there's a spike during cold and flu season on October 15th or 20th or 30th, and we're back on a lockdown, there would be no way at that point to remedy that situation and get everybody to vote by mail at that point if you're not able to go in person. So for that reason, the governor went this direction. Everyone's going to get a VBM. There still is some in-person voting opportunities. There will be 6 voting centers in C Ward, for instance. Those in-person voting opportunities is another form of paper ballot. If you go to a voting center, you'll be voting on another form of paper called a provisional ballot. It's called provisional because when it comes back to us, we vet it to make sure you're a registered voter, make sure you didn't vote in any other way. And that's the reason as well that people say, well, we have no problem with the vote, with having the opportunity to vote by mail, but why can't we still have that opportunity to vote on the machine? The reason is this: once we send out a vote by mail, that poll worker in the polling place has no way to tell whether or not you returned it. So to allow somebody to vote on the machine at that time would be allowing somebody to vote for a second time and to have 2 votes counted, which obviously is not something that we want. So that's what the provisional ballot is about. That's why that's your option when you go to the polling place. There is a machine at each polling place. That machine is there for ADA disabled voters only. The machine that we always use, that you're very used to, the push button machine, has an audio component that allows a blind person to listen, or a sight impaired person to listen to the election and vote. And that's basically the only way that a sight impaired person could cast their own ballot with full surety that it's, without relying on someone else to fill that out for them. How do these VBMs work? I have a sample that I wanted to show you because the VBM is going to look a little different than we're used to. More of a business size envelope. It's always been white and blue and longer. This is what your VBM coming to your house is going to look like. There we go. It's a little boxier than normal, and the reason why is because the ballot, the less folds that we have on the ballot, the easier it's going to scan for me. We are expecting a tremendous number of paper ballots, upwards of 250,000, I'm quite sure, between the vote by mails and the provisionals that we'll receive back on election night. When you receive that ballot, inside are a couple different things. One, I will say the county clerk provides a pretty substantial and informative set of instructions with pictures and step-by-step directions. Please, my one recommendation to everybody, if you're going to avail yourself of this vote by mail option, sit down at the table, fill it out, read everything. Obviously people take good time with their ballot and know who they want to vote with, but the rest of the paperwork that comes in there, and that's what I want. So also in there you'll find your ballot and 2 more envelopes. This is the inner envelope with a cert on top, and it says on the front of it, and it says on there, "Do not detach." You fill out all that information with your name and address and sign it, please. And I say, sit down, put a little thought into your signature. We do. It bothers me that we have too many signature match rejects. Although everybody's signature changes pretty much every time, but certainly sitting at your kitchen table and signing that, putting a little thought into it, signing the way you would sign an official document is going to go a long way towards helping me compare your signature, as opposed to doing it on your knee in the car. Because when we get those, what we do is print out your signature of record. And your signature of record is always the last contact you had with us. Every time you send in either a vote by mail or answer any piece of our mail that has a signature on it, we're going to scan in your last signature. And then we are comparing this signature to that signature. That's mine. I hope it looks somewhat similar. I think that would certainly get through our process. But let's get back to what you're doing at home. This is just a sample ballot. This is a sample that I voided out from the last election, but it's a primary ballot, so your ballot will look different than those ballots are being printed for this election, being printed currently. That ballot goes into that inner envelope. Inner envelope is sealed. Do not detach that. That entire package goes into that second envelope. That's going to go back to us. Postage is paid on all envelopes. Now, what else can you do? How do you get it back to us? There are a couple different ways. You have the U.S. Postal Service, obviously. Do know that by this executive order, the time for you to get that ballot back to us has been extended. As long as it's postmarked by Election Day, we will accept those, and they will be good up until 7 days after the election. So if you're up against the time, do not worry. As long as that ballot is postmarked and we receive it within 7 days, it will be counted. Some other ways to get those ballots back to us, and some people are fearful with the U.S. Postal Service. A lot of us have seen, even on coming to our private homes, now taking a little longer than usual, and there will be, we will be taxing the U.S. Postal Service during this time period with the number of ballots that they're handling. So you can drop that ballot in a drop box. The two closest drop boxes, probably most of us listening today, would be by St. Peter's University on the corner of Montgomery and JFK. There will be a drop box, and in front of County Plaza, 257 Cornelison Avenue, Hudson County Plaza, right in front of us will be another drop box.
Hey, can I jump in real quick?
Surely.
Michael? Do you guys have like a printout of those locations that we can share with the group?
I do not. We just put it together. There will be one going out with all the vote by mails. There'll be a full list of that. In short, there's one in front of every municipality. There will be one because the state we're still waiting on state delivery, but we hope to get that and get them out before the ballots go out. But there will be one in front of every municipal building in the county, and in Jersey City, obviously, given your size, we put one in every ward. So your Jersey City ones are A ward's the Morgan Library on JFK, B is St. Peter's University, C is County Plaza, D is in front of the North District Police Department on Central. There's one in front of Jersey City Hall, which covers E, and one that already was placed before the primary in front of the Jersey City Hall Annex, 1 Jackson Square in F.
Okay.
So that's your Jersey City sites. And one final thing that I want to mention is another way that you can get it to us this election. Was it part of the EO? I believe, or was that a change in law? No, I think that was part of the EO that allows you, for the first time ever, if you have your vote by mail, haven't sent it back yet, you can deliver that to your polling station on election day. You can bring it in, hand it to a poll worker. They will put it in a lock, a lock box that will come back to us on election night. That's a first, and it's good government. It's the right thing to do. One final thing I want to mention, just on, because I did mention the signature comparison. We do send out remedy letters, and if the signature is off, we will send you a letter saying, we received the ballot, but the signature comparison was deemed no good. Was this you? And it providing us with a FR, the last 4 of your social, your Jersey driver's license, and a new signature. We will count your ballot and update your signature. So that's sort of some of the basics. I could certainly, I'm open to any questions.
Awesome. We do have questions from the group, so we'll bring some things in. And I just want to say, I actually had the nerdy pleasure of watching the ballots be counted as an observer during the primary election, and it's a pretty efficient operation. I mean, it seems kind of crazy to steal a ballot and then seal it in something else, but what that does is it protects your privacy and anonymity. They take your name off the ballot before they even open it to go to count it. So nobody has any, it's a completely secret process.
When we've approved that signature, that's when that comes off, and this anonymous, the name goes that way, the anonymous envelope goes that way, where it's open and then counted through a scanning system. And that is probably the most important thing I could say, is that you do know, I know it's different, I know we're all creatures of habit, and everyone is, longs to get back to the machines that we all felt comfortable with. But voting by mail is anonymous. Your vote is counted. I can never again attach a person. I know it makes some people nervous sending a ballot out like this with their name attached to it, and they say, "Oh, they're going to know how I voted." That the entire process and system is made to avoid that. So do know that they are counted, and do know, I know some people worry about that too. The interesting thing is, a vote by mail is its own paper trail. I keep every vote by mail for, every piece of paper that comes to our office is kept for at least 2 years after that election. So for 2 years after any election, you could come up, pick a random election. We could pull those ballots and count them by hand and see that they came out the exact. We will be auditing our entire system again after this election. We'll probably do that in that's a December, early January thing. But we will be auditing our election to make sure our scanning machines and just to jump back to that for 1 second, our scanner, ballots are like a Scantron, any Scantron test. We say fill in that circle next to the name as completely as possible. We set the standards on that, so it will normally catch a check or an X through it. And we do look at even if there's anything touching it, that comes up in what we call adjudication, where we would get a chance to interpret that voter intent. So if someone circles the circle as opposed to filling it in, that's not going to catch on the system. The system's looking for what's within the circle, but we do catch that and make it right. And that's where the 6 commissioners that I answer to, the Hudson County Board of Elections, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, they're the ones who interpret voter intent at the end.
Okay. I got questions from Facebook, so I'm going to try and go through 2
Sure.
or 3 just to save time for other speakers. But the first one is from Mandar. He's asking, when are the ballots expected in the mail?
That week of September they're starting to go out. I believe the 24th. They all have to. The first round has to be out, I should say, by October 13th. I'm sorry, October 5th. The registration date is October 13th. So there will be further, if people continue to register, we will continue to send out ballots. But the bulk of ballots, if you're already registered, will be going out between September 24th and October 5th.
Okay. And then September 4th and October. So October 25th will be the late, October 27th.
September 24th and October 5th.
October 5th is the latest that they're going to be mailed?
Basically October 13th is the latest but that's would only be for new registrations. We would receive a registration up to October 13th. The 14th, 15th, the clerk would still be working to get those out. But that's about the end of it. The last of them, but of new registrations, should be out by October 15th or 16th.
Okay. We have a question from Adam. Will instructions be provided in several languages beyond English and Spanish?
I believe that are, when I'm looking at the instructions, they are in English and Spanish. I will have to look into certainly the Hudson County Clerk's website is an excellent resource for all things election. In the election section of that, there's a track your ballot section where you can see if your ballot has gotten back to us yet. The clerk is also using what's called informed delivery through the post office this election, so that if you're signed up for that, they will send you an email 2 days ahead of time or so and tell you that your ballot's on the way. So I can't answer beyond English and Spanish. Not really, but through translators, some of that may be available on the HudsonCountyClerk.org website. Okay.
I see a few other questions from Facebook. I know there's a question about curing, but I believe you discussed that you guys will remedy if the signatures don't match. I do have a question here. Somebody's asking, they don't remember if they use their middle initial in the signature. Can they verify what their signature looks like?
Yeah, you can give me a call on Monday, and I'll check it out for you. But do know that's not an issue on which we would ever not accept the ballot, whether or not you use that middle initial. If you didn't, then you do. It's okay, and if you did and you don't, it's okay. Okay.
So if people want to stay updated, questions, concerns, what's the best way to get information from your office?
The HudsonCountyClerk.org will really be the most up to date. In true governmental fashion, there are 3 offices with their hands in the election process. The county clerk sends out the ballots. I run the Board of Elections. The Board of Elections hires and trains poll workers, chooses polling places, and counts paper ballots, which is obviously and certifies the election in the end. That, as I said, is a 6-member board. They're appointed by the governor, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans. Everything we've done in a bipartisan basis, there are Democrats and Republicans overseeing every step of the process.
All right. Well, Michael, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And I hope I cleared up a few things. And, it's obviously so important to this election and all elections. But it is a little different than we're used to, certainly. But it's a moment in time, and we'll get through this and get back to normal, hopefully, relatively soon. But thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, Michael. Have a good weekend. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, big changes to the election procedures this year, but now you know what the county's doing to try and address it, different procedures, and we'll keep you updated with more information as things go on as we get closer to the election date. I'm going to move on to Robinson, who's going to be discussing an issue that's going to be on the ballot this November. So an easy transition, if you ask me. But Robinson, and she has a multimedia PowerPoint that we'll try and run through real quick. So Robinson, welcome.
Hi, thanks guys. Really great to be here.
I apologize, I didn't introduce. You're going to be speaking on the Arts and Culture Trust referendum, but I'll let you introduce yourself.
For those who don't know me, I'm Robinson Holloway. I was the original chair of the Jersey City Arts Council, and in that role, I helped shepherd the referendum that is on the ballot that you just learned how to fill out. And it's important. It's municipal question number 1, which is an Arts and Culture Trust question. But I want to give you a little background before I get into it. So when I became chair of the Arts Council, which was formed about 4 years ago, as you know, Jersey City has a lot of artists, has a lot of small arts organizations, some medium-sized, but mostly small. And the arts in general has a somewhat capitalist, market capitalist model. You can buy a book, you can buy a ticket to the theater, you can buy a painting, but it doesn't always work that way. In its perfect form, it becomes Disney, but we're not Disney. We're a group of grassroots organizations and individual artists. So we felt that we needed community support in order to continue to exist, and civic support. So Heather Warfel, who's currently chair of the Arts Council, and I went to meet with Mayor Fulop in March of 2018 to discuss having civic support for the arts. And specifically to be, we were requesting 0.0025% of the budget, 0.25% of the budget to be given to the arts to help stabilize them. This wouldn't pay everybody's bills, but it would keep us alive. The mayor turned us down for many reasons, many of them good. The chief one among them was that it wasn't really sustainable, that even if he wanted to support the arts and give us lots of money, the next mayor might not, or there might be a crisis that would change the budget. So we wanted something sustainable. And to his credit, he had our state representatives together within 2 weeks, and we crafted a bill that will allow any municipality in New Jersey, and this had to be something out of Trenton. Jersey City couldn't do a tax on its own. Any municipality in New Jersey is allowed to have a referendum to ask its citizens for a small levy to support the arts, the local arts. And it was supposed to go through quickly. It did not, but the governor finally signed the bill this January. And in February, the Jersey City City Council unanimously put it on the ballot. Well, you may have heard in April, after COVID set in, that the mayor was concerned it wouldn't pass, and so he wanted to pull it from the ballot. The arts community got together, and we felt that there was sufficient support, and we felt that it was important enough to keep it now. We feel like even though times are tough, people still want to support the arts and appreciate the role that the arts play and appreciate the difficulty the arts have during these tough times. Now, the arts are going to be the last things that come back. It'll be a long time before people will be able to cram into a theater again and watch the ballet. So we thought it was worth doing. We commissioned a poll, and it was a professional pollster who specializes in ballot measures, and they told us it was as big a slam dunk as they'd ever seen. So it's back.
Could you just give that number again? I think it got cut out a little bit.
Oh.
Robinson, I think there was a little bit of a lag while you were talking. Do you want to give that number again?
I didn't actually give a number.
Okay, sorry. Just the response from the professional pollster.
I'm sorry.
I think one of us has a connection problem, but I'll let you speak. Sorry about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hope it's not me. I hope everybody can get it. At any rate, that's just to give you background. It's on the ballot. It will be asking for, the language is very similar to the Open Space Trust Fund. It has a maximum of 2 cents per $100 of property tax valuation. The most likely number is going to be half a penny. I say most likely because the city council won't decide this until after the referendum is passed. So sometime in early 2021, assuming the referendum passes, the exact amount will be decided. But everything I have heard, every conversation I've had has been half a penny. So if you have a property valued at $500,000, you would be paying an extra $25 a year in property taxes. And I know all of our taxes are really high, and I know there are other taxes out there, but this is a small tax and it's very targeted. Yes, thank you. It's very targeted at the arts, and it will support local arts organizations and artists. Now, the question I get most often is, how will this be spent? And again, I'm going to use the word likely because this is not up to me. This is not fully determined yet, but there will be a committee that will be formed, much like the Open Space Fund, that the mayor will have a representative on, each city council member will name a representative, and the arts community will have one through the Arts Council. And they will decide the policy of this and how the money will be regranted. It's not going to be a huge amount of money, but and it's going to require some thought. There are many examples of how we grant money to the arts. The State Council on the Arts has a $16 million fund that they give through the hotel tax to statewide. But Hudson County usually gets about $150,000 out of that entire $16 million. So the way that arts are, arts grants work that way doesn't necessarily translate to the way the arts exist in Jersey City. And believe me, we've given this a lot of thought as to how we make it equitable, how we make it fair, how we make it strengthen the arts citywide, make sure that small groups and large groups get it, that individual artists can get it without, in a way that real judgment is used to help the city and help the arts in the city. So I can't tell you exactly how it's going to be, but I can tell you there's a lot of thought going into it, and that individual grants, as is usual, are decided by people who are not local. So I would not be deciding who gets a grant. It would be somebody outside who is not, has no friends, has no biases against the arts. That is usually standard. I would decide who gets a grant in Kansas City, and somebody in Portland, Oregon would decide who gets it here. That is usually how it works. But we're very cognizant that this is taxpayer money and that we want it to make a strong art society. So we have on the pages after this, we have a Vote Yes campaign that you should be seeing on social media in the next few weeks. There's some samples of it coming through. And if anybody wants any of these social media things, I will send a bunch to Kevin and he can distribute them. But we'd love to, get the word out. The Vote Yes campaign came from an arts community meeting where one of our participants said, you know what? I think that given all the bad news and given all the unpleasant votes that we do, it'll be nice to actually vote for something happy on the ballot. And we hope that voting for the arts and voting for a strong community in the arts will be something that you will happily do. I'm looking at questions.
Yeah, there's some questions coming in. I wanted to comment. I like the social media. I thought they're really well designed, really intelligent. And I figured, well, you've got the artists in favor of this, so they're going to come up with some good advertising. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So let's see, questions from the group.
Outdoor live music performances. Yeah. I think that is definitely on the ticket, especially if we're still banned from being largely indoors. That's kind of a city thing, so that would be more of a cultural affairs thing. But I believe that if we can do it, it's certainly worth doing. And in fact, if you've got, this will be the sort of thing that we can actually pay for. if this fund goes through, that we'll be paying for proposals. So if somebody wants to do an outdoor concert and, you know, they put in a grant, we can absolutely pay for it. The tough thing is the arts are struggling here in Jersey City. I mean, New York, they're struggling in New York and they have a lot more money and they give a lot more money. They give, if we gave what New York City gave to the arts, we'd be spending $6 million out of our budget every year by population. So given that we spend not that, and believe me, this referendum will not collect anywhere near that kind of money, you know, we do pretty well, but our artists need support. I mean, already arts organizations are struggling. Artists have been leaving to go to Patterson and Newark and Buffalo. So
I have a question about is it going to raise the same amount of money as the Open Space Trust Fund?
Yes, that's
okay.
The plan.
Because I know we were involved with that process, and it was a similar structure. Like you said, there was a committee made up of the council members, and they tried to distribute. And we actually helped with an application for Pavonia Marion Park, which was approved, and now actually renovations are going through. So it's not something that just got talked about. You know, decisions were made, money was spent. So.
Yeah. No, and we anticipate that. I mean, having had the Open Space Fund lead the way, I think it'll be a lot easier. Also, the arts lives off grants. I mean, there are a lot of structures in place that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I do think we have to rethink it because Jersey City is a unique community of artists. I see what's happening with JCast this year. JCast is happening October 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. It will be all virtual. If you go to thejcast.com, you will see, if you're an artist, you can sign up, and Art House Productions will be doing on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday live programming. So you can go straight to the JCast website to see all the individual artists and galleries and shows, but there will also be live presentations, 10 and 20 minute blocks throughout the day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of JCast.
Okay.
I don't want to take up too much more of your time. If there
we have Dr. Walker set up next. I think he's having a little technical difficulties. So if there's any other questions from the group, we can take them until Mr. Walker comes back. JCast is here. Ballot questionnaire. Okay.
But anyway, if we believe that this is something that can do wonders for the city, even though it's a small amount of money, much like the Open Space Fund. I think that a strong arts community, you know, makes this a city that, you know, that has more soul. And I do think that given how few people I ever see on the PATH train, having arts that you don't have to get on a train to see will be of a great benefit. And I think people are pivoting, and I think this will be something that, you know, we'll look, I should say one thing. Although this is statewide, we are the first city to do it. And there are municipalities all over the state, I can tell you, who are looking very eagerly at what we do and when this passes, if this passes, and how we do it. Because next year, there are a lot of people who will want to follow in our footsteps. So I hope you all vote, and I hope you all vote for the referendum. And if you have any questions, I'm going to put my email in the chat. So if you want the social media to spread around, which would be great, or if you just have any questions that you think of later, just please feel free to write to me.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us, Robinson. Okay. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. And now we're going to get to our main speaker for the day. Franklin Walker is the superintendent of Jersey City Public Schools, and he's going to be speaking with us about the 2020 school year and how we're getting started. So, Franklin, thank you for joining us.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Good morning. So, yeah, I'll give you some time to introduce yourself. I have a few questions, and then we're going to turn it over to the group. So, the floor is yours.
All right, sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and certainly thanks to the Jersey City or the General Square Community Association for inviting me. And, you know, I certainly like the slogan, working together to build a better community, and clean, green, and safe. And safe is certainly a big part of what we're focused on this year. I mean, it's certainly a concern every year, But this year, it's given a bigger focus based upon the pandemic and the concerns that we have at this point in time. So my name is Franklin Walker, and I'm currently the district superintendent for the Jersey City Public Schools. And as I said, I thank the General Square organization for inviting me this morning, and so I can provide some information that I'm quite sure that everyone, certainly in the area as well as Jersey City, continues to want to be updated on. This is certainly an unprecedented set of circumstances for us. It's changed the way in the landscape of education as we know it. We keep wanting to go back to a traditional structure, but I think at this point in time, recognize that it's not going back to tradition. It's really about making adjustments and moving forward in the name of educating all of our children. So I think that the key stakeholders, at this point in time, recognize that, and we look forward to making, appropriate decisions to support the continuing development of our children. So if there's some questions, that I can address, certainly I'd be more than happy to do that.
Fantastic, and we appreciate you making the time.
Sure.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but school resumed this week. How's it going? How would you rate it the first week of school?
Yeah, school started back on September the 8th for teachers. We brought them in for 2 days for professional development, and we do that on a regular. However, this year, certainly it was a little different because it's really about going into 100% of virtual instruction, although we had opportunities during the summer to provide some support for our teachers in terms of addressing the learning management system of the Google Classroom platform. But we had a chance to focus particularly on some of the subject areas for the teachers going into that process, and a new schedule altogether for the most part. But I can say, we have some very talented and resourceful, resilient, and committed educators in Jersey City. And just like in the past, based upon some emergencies, this was no different. They stepped up to the challenge. And I thought that all in all, considering all the circumstances and the fact that we were dealing with a very new environment, things went relatively well. I had a chance to visit most of the schools, and students were logging on. As a matter of fact, we had just under 90% of attendance with students logging on. There were some technical difficulties in a few areas based upon passwords and students' IDs and, hotspots and just some very basic things. However, many of them were cleared up. It went relatively well. One of the things that we did prior to the start of school, especially with students on the 10th, is that we knew there'd be some areas and parents would have some concerns, because the thing about this new environment in terms of virtual instruction, it requires that parents become a lot more involved in terms of development of what's going on with their children, especially in the lower grades. Parents really have to assist and work with their child to log on. Children are very resourceful. They understand the digital process probably better than many of us adults. However, they still require instruction in terms of being able to navigate the Google Classroom structure. And so it requires that parents be very much involved in helping students, especially in the lower grades, to be able to log on. So we had supports to do that. As a matter of fact, on the website, we have some tutorials that support that. But what we also did was develop a hotline we call the COVID hotline response number, and it's an 800 number, and I just want to give that at this point in time.
Sure.
Although it's on the website, but it's also important for everyone to know, and it's 1-877-708-8195, and I'll repeat that. It's 1-877-708-8195. Now, ordinarily, if parents are having any difficulties, what they do is generally contact the school, and that's the best first step to be able to get information or contact someone to be able to provide their support. But if for some reason they cannot get to school, then they can call that hot line number, And within 24 hours, as a matter of fact, in most cases, much sooner than that, but within 24-hour period, someone will have contacted the caller to provide information. And most of those calls center around technology and identifying, some of the circumstances surrounding their children being able to get online. However, if there are other questions that are supportive based upon the reopening process, those questions will be answered as well. And then we also have an opportunity for parents to reach out, and on the website, there is a way in order to contact the school through an email address. So we try to do as much as we can to provide the necessary support so parents will be able to be in touch with the school, because if ever there was a time that we need to cooperate as a group and certainly make sure that parents are a partnership in the educational support and development of the children, this is certainly one of those times. And so we want to make ourselves, readily available for the parents so we can continue to communicate, making sure that their children have everything they need, and certainly in terms of information to be able to address the needs of learning.
Can I ask what's the main website that you would direct parents to?
I'm sorry, the Jersey City Public School, jcboe.org.
Okay.
Yeah, Jersey City Public School site.
Okay, I'm going to post that up on the screen.
Right.
One of the questions that our members were having is, some people don't have a kid in school, kids at different ages. What does a typical pre-K, 5th grade, high school classroom look like today? It's going to be different for different ages of instruction, I would imagine.
That's right. One of the things, certainly virtually things do change, but what we try to do is we try to mirror the structure and the time of a regular schedule based upon when children are in school. And for example, with the pre-K program, because at this point in time, we know that they require the support of their parents as they work through this year process. What we did initially through the Early Childhood Development Program with Dr. Ruth Cummings Hippolyte, students in the pre-K program were provided with toolkits. And in those toolkits, it mimicked a number of items and activities that students would ordinarily do inside the classroom. And the reason for that is so that they, although they're real live virtual instruction and engagement with the teacher will be probably for a period of about an hour, but much of the day they have an opportunity to work with these toolkits to develop some of the skills by way of math and manipulatives that once we go back to in-person instruction, it's just a question of a follow because they'll be using those same items. So on the pre-K level, we're talking about live instruction for a period of an hour with them utilizing and supplementing the learning process by way of these toolkits that they receive. But in the other classrooms, you said grade 5 and certainly high school, it will mimic in terms of time a traditional day inside the classroom. However, in the very beginning part of the day for those students, there will be an opportunity for teachers and students to sign on, meaning that attendance will be taken. And then once that occurs, then there'll be a development, just like in a regular classroom, of teachers can break students up into small groups. They can develop problem-based learning. They can develop support programs by way of the learning management system where we use the Google platform. They can go into a Google Meet or a Zoom process where they have live engagement with the teacher, which is the synchronous method, or they can go into asynchronous where it's a pre-recorded or a tape or some kind of research assignment that's provided, but it will be divided up in the day based upon time sequence and pretty much the same as what happens during the course of the day in the classroom. In the high schools, the time is broken up into 45-minute period schedules, just like in the high school. And there's an opportunity for strong teacher-student engagement based upon the platforms that are involved, because to the Google Classroom, there's an opportunity to post assignments. There's an opportunity for teachers and students to communicate based upon lessons There's an opportunity based upon the software packages that we use for students to develop a level of independence in terms of building their self-reliant skills. There's an opportunity for pre, post, and activity engagement where students can also receive feedback in short increments to support the learning development. So the process for the virtual instruction will allow students to be certainly engaged in the process in a way that they can build self-capacity, become self-reliant in terms of their own learning. There's all sorts of variations to support the various differentiated instruction depending upon the level of students. So it means that if a student is not up to level, there's an opportunity for these programs to provide the additional support and remediation to assist them through the process. If there are students that are on par or students that are advanced, there's opportunities to support that through the accelerated learning part, through the enrichment. There are a number of different modes that we can use to support this process. The interesting thing, and the thing that I just want to impress the parents, is that the structure that's in place based on virtual learning, the same objectives that we have when students are in person, where it's supported by New Jersey student learning standards, in terms of it being a standard-based curriculum, that still takes place, and those are still our goals. It's just that the delivery and the model and the mode that's used is different. It's virtual. But our goals and our objectives in terms of learning values and development of students remain the same. It's just that we have a different way of presenting that process, a different way of delivery, but our goals and our objectives remain the same.
Fantastic. Thank you. We have a comment from Bridget, who's a parent. She said, we had a great start at PS3. Teachers and staff did an incredible job. As a parent, very grateful for the commitment. To see how teachers have pivoted and adjusted is downright inspiring. She also had a question. She's curious if there's a count on the number of students who did not end up having devices on day one, and what the district's doing to support those students.
Yes, we've certainly maintained that. However, our position was to make sure there shouldn't have been a case based upon a student not having a device during day one. If anything, there may have been a technical issue based upon that student signing on because of the student ID number or password or some issue with the device. You know, we did have a few situations where there may have been one of the digits on the computer that may have come off or something to that effect, but we were able to resolve those issues certainly at a moment's notice. However, based upon the need, and I think that that's the other thing that I really want to take the time to clear up, because I know there were some concerns where information went out that there wasn't enough computers in the Jersey public schools, based upon the start of the school year. In March, we did a survey to identify the number of devices that were needed in the district. And under those circumstances, in terms of the percentage, there were about 600 parents throughout the district that indicated, or students that said that they didn't have the device. However, we gave out in March, there were 2 distributions and there was 1 in April. So we gave out, close to 7,000 devices to students based upon those that indicated that there was a need. However, we had another 8,000 devices at central office, and so the position was, depending upon who required the need, they would be available. Based upon the numbers that were identified, we had more than enough. However, going into September, there were additional students or parents that indicated that there was a need going into September. And our concern was we wanted to make sure that we were able to get those computers into those that did not have a device. However, our goal for the year is to make sure that we have a device per student, regardless of whether they had one in the past or not. Our position was we want to make sure that we gave a device to every student. However, September the 10th, the concern was to make sure that we have in the hands of the students that did not have them. And that was based upon the information we received. And so when we talk about devices coming in, we have another 10,000 coming in to certainly serve the rest of the population. That number of the devices that are not here and that'll be here in October, that's based upon every student. However, September the 10th, the goal was that everyone in need have a computer. And based upon that information, everyone in need had a computer. Now, there were, based upon the first distribution, second, and the third, of the parents that indicate they had a need, only 50% of the parents that identified or students that they had a need came in to pick the computer up. So then our position was, prior to September 10th, the principals reached out to their parents and asked them to fill out a survey to indicate if they had a computer or not. And so under those circumstances, in the beginning part of the year, they would contact parents each and every day prior to September 10th, and they scheduled for parents to come in to pick a device up based upon the need. So if on September the 10th, there was a student without a device, it's only because they didn't come in or no one came in to pick up that device. And if there is a student for some reason in any one of the schools that have not had the opportunity to come in and pick up the device, then please make sure that you do that, as soon as possible. But reach out to the school. Parents, please utilize that hotline, and make sure that we're aware, because computers are available for all those that identified they had the need at this point in time. However, as I mentioned before, and I really just kind of reemphasize that our goal is to have a device per student, and that will happen in October, no later than November, and that's when the other computers that have been ordered will come in.
All right, thank you for that.
And a long answer, but I just wanted to make sure that I tried to be very clear about what our goals are. There's two sets, those in need, and then one device per student.
Gotcha. All right. And I'm going to encourage everybody. I got a few questions lined up, but if anybody has questions, just drop them below. If you're on Facebook or on the side, if you're on YouTube or however it works, but we can get questions submitted from the group and we can ask Mr. Walker about them. I do have a question. What is the current plan for returning to in-person instruction? I know there was a plan in place previous, and then, Jersey City was one of the first schools in the state to decide that they were going to go to all virtual instruction for a period of time. As it stands today, September 12th, what does the return to in-person instruction look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. The X factor gets larger every day, especially as we move from March going into September. Depending upon the information we receive, certainly determine, what our plans were, and we had to continue to adapt them. To give you an idea, even in terms of school closure, we had to have at least 4 different plans submitted to the state based upon changes. And then with our reopening plan, it changed at least 5 times or more as we moved towards September. However, although it was flexible enough to make that adjustment, the plan that we had and we started with really remains the same. And so it needs to be reinforced that it was the school reopening plan for the Jersey City Public Schools was a 5-phase plan. Phase 1 was the most restrictive based upon health reasons, which provided an all-remote structure for us. And phase 5 was returning everyone back to in-person instruction. So between phase 1 and 5, that's where the changes took place. So what we did was we just continued in phase 1, which is where we left off at the end of June. We continued phase 1. We certainly improved the process based on what our needs were, but phase 1 was all remote. our plan initially was to go to phase 2. Phase 2 meant that we would be bringing back 1/3 of our students for in-person instruction, where everyone else would pretty much remain on a remote process. And then phase 3 would be we'd bring back another third, so we'd have 66% of our students back in person, and then the other percentage would be operate remotely. And then phase 4 would be where we have 99, almost everyone back, and then phase 5 where everyone would be back. And so the concern was that we would not know which phase we would be in based upon what the health data supported in terms of the process, but we wanted to gradually bring students back in a way that we can certainly manage, because the prerequisites of providing a safe environment where we had to now have screenings done on a regular basis, that process, the social distancing structure, the cleaning and disinfecting schedules in the classroom, the accommodations being met for both students and staff in the process. So the whole landscape of what a regular school day looked like had changed. And so in order to do that and be very fair with everyone involved and certainly provide the safest environment possible, also recognizing what the health data was in terms of, the number of individuals located inside of a building or inside of a classroom, all those things impacted our decision. The executive orders from the governor, the information presented by the CDC, by the Department of Education, and also by our local health organization. All those things were part of the process, and we're very fortunate to have key stakeholders in the city that participated on the various committees that addressed the concerns in reference to school environment, entrance into the building, the exit, the transportation structure for students, instructional phase. We had a number of people in the community that were part of those groups that I certainly continue to thank them for their participation. But all those things went into our plan. So our plan is in place, and depending upon the health data and those variables that are involved with to determine what the circumstances are with the COVID-19 virus, will determine when we execute the various phases. Right now it's phase 1 because of the position that we're in and because of the health data. However, if things change, then we'll get a chance to transition to phase 2 and move throughout phase 5. But, the reinforcement is that phase 1 will last a minimum of up to November the 16th, which is the first marking period. And initially, we decided, the board and certainly the superintendent in the district, that we would just look at what was taking place during the month of September. However, to be fair to parents, to students, and everyone that's involved in the system, and that staff, it would be in our best interest to identify a block of time that will allow us to be certainly manageable in terms of the support of the instruction for students. And so rather than chip away at this and say, we'll look at, what happens in September, and we'll look at what happens in October, we'll look at what happens in November, our position was to identify the block of time, which would be the first marking period, so we can develop a level of consistency and continuity in students' instruction. Because one of the things that the pandemic did was to interrupt and break up, fragment that educational structure, and we had to find ways to bridge those gaps as best we could, and we did that. However, our position at this point in time, knowing what we know, it's in our best interest to at least identify a block of time, which would be from September to November, and to go full speed ahead in terms of the structure for virtual learning, provide the best support and environment for students learning, so they become accustomed to the new frontier of learning for that period of time. And then we will make an assessment as we move towards that period, November the 16th, and then determine with the health data and the circumstances around any new events that are in place, whether we go back to in-person instruction and enact our phase 2 or phase 3, depending upon what the data indicates, or if we continue to stay in phase 1. But we will certainly, like everyone else, be very much, attentive to the conditions of what's taking place in reference to the virus and the type of environment that exists that will certainly provide the best and safe conditions for our students and staff.
All right. We have another question from the group. Mia is asking, what controls are in place that computers aren't being sold? You've given out many more computers that was initially requested.
Yeah, that's correct. And it's always a concern. Anytime we give out equipment, there's always concern. But what we've done is anyone that takes a computer, it's signed out. In addition to that, the control systems are still connected to the district, which means that the district has the opportunity to, and they have the ability to identify all their computers because they're, locked into our main system, in the district. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why, we could provide the support with the Chromebooks the way we have, because we can also control, what's viewed on those devices, what's happening with them. And so, but there's still, in spite of all the controls that we have and the things that we do with it and, monitoring, there's still a trust system. There's still a trust system that, these are items that are used just like with books. These are items that are used by the students for learning. And our positions that we would hope that they would value them. They would certainly treasure them and provide the safety of protecting, this property that's on loan from the district, just like they would do books and other items that we provide for students.
I have another question about the challenges of distance, instruction from a distance. How is the school system addressing the social services aspect of, having physical locations closed, whether that be school lunches and food programs or, monitoring for issues at home and, child welfare and questions like that?
Sure, that's a big factor. One of the things, some of the characteristics of in-person instruction is that we get a chance to build relationships with students in a way that really complements the learning process. And so by not being able to do that, that's an area that we certainly have to find ways to address. There are a few schools that had greet and meets. For example, PS number 16, I had a chance to stop by on yesterday, as a matter of fact, and they had a greet and meet with parents, certainly recognized the social distancing and everyone wearing the mask. And it was outside. The weather certainly was conducive enough to do that. The teachers, the schools, we recognize the importance of a connection. We recognize the importance of, when students learn, they need to be able to connect with a teacher, see them, and build relationships. And that part is missing. So we found ways through the distance learning platform to be able to exercise, some of those elements as a part of the instruction. For example, based upon the virtual instructions, every day there's social, emotional, and character development activities that take place and that are actually built into the lessons at this point in time to develop ways of students being able to provide feedback on how they feel, what their concerns are with the things that are taking place, even with the virtual learning. I mean, how do they feel about that? How are they doing based upon the disconnection, not coming to school, different activities. Some of it, they have set up situations where, there's role playing that takes place, the information that's presented to them in small group, has to do with them being involved in addressing some of those issues through problem-based structures. We also have where guidance counselors will be working with teachers to talk and operate with small groups of students to recognize some of their concerns. There'll be pre-recorded videos that will be presented to students to discuss and identify some of those concerns. There'll be presentation by various programs that will support that. We have, as I said, certainly built into the lesson the support for reinforcing some of the social concerns that students will have under those circumstances. It's an issue that becomes even a greater part of the instructional process for students, because we recognize it's one of the things that that's missing, and that we're not able to provide that address in person. So we have to reach out through a virtual process to make sure that we reinforce and develop that support for students, so they feel good about it. When the pandemic phased in and we closed schools, one of the things that students were faced with was a level of abandonment. And once you develop contact with people that are important for students based upon them recognizing the relationship of these teachers and these individuals that are pouring into them in preparation for their futures, they recognize it, and they look for that, and they miss that. When I went down on yesterday and I saw just the energy level and the way the students were just so excited to be able to be in the school area and see some of the adults that were associated with the learning, it just kind of reinforced that's a connection that we just have to have. And because we can't have it to the degree that we want it based on the virtual instruction, we have to find other means of adapting that same process and relationship. And so it's one that we have to work harder at virtually, but we still have to give attention to that process.
Fantastic, thank you. I have another question from the group. What happens to students whose parents both physically go to work, for instance, children of essential workers?
It's another concern, that we have, and we certainly we tried to see if we could research a way that there could be some level of child care in other areas, whether we could provide it or there are other agencies that can provide it. And and it's a situation that exists, all over. In addition to that, it's also a situation that existed before the pandemic in terms of parents working and children at school. And there were some days where parents worked and children were home for different reasons or different holidays. And parents, all of us, we had to make adjustments in making that determination. However, this time, it's certainly much more emphasized because now schools are closed basically. And so, we're still trying to research and find out how we can provide additional support to some parents. We've given some consideration to the possibility of seeing how we could provide areas or programs that will be able to support children during the course of the school day. And we're still reaching. We haven't stopped. This whole process puts us in, as I said before, an unprecedented area. And as a result, a lot of what we're doing and a lot of decisions that will be made will continue to be made because it's a fluid structure at this point in time. And some of the things that we need to make decisions on, we can until we go through the process to fully understand the extent of those situations and then to try to find ways to resolve them. Some of the resolve will come from questions like this. It'll come from parents making recommendations. It'll come from students making recommendations because there's so many things that can be done. But our position is, we have 30,000 students in the Jersey Public School District. If we're in a district, where they had 5,000, if we're in a district where they had 2,000, certainly our decisions could be a lot different. And one of the things that the rollback plan that the governor directed the schools to develop and follow, they provided guidance. But one of the things they were clear about is that in spite of the guidance that they were providing, there were just considerations because everyone had to do what was important for their district. And there were differences in the district, and certainly with us, being the second largest district in New Jersey, the considerations that we had to give support to are a lot different than maybe some of the other districts. And some of the decisions, as I said, going forward, we'll be tweaking some, making some adjustments based upon the needs that come up. But our position, again, the sooner we can go back to in-person instructions, the better we'd be as a district and certainly the support for our children. The fact that we're operating virtually, it doesn't take away from our responsibility or our need to educate our children. And we have, as I said, a standard base that we have to, make sure that we're addressing. And we will continue to do that. And we will continue to get better based on this virtual process. And there'll be some things that come out this virtual process that we can do and that will impact our students in a very productive way that we probably have not been able to do in person. And I'm referring to the digital skills of students, which certainly are in line with our global objective of making our students competitive on a global level, to support them in terms of their ability to navigate their careers after high school in this job market that's still very transient in terms of the process. And I know that I've kind of digressed a bit in terms of the initial part of the question, but as I said, there are a lot of things that we have to address and new things that are coming up. And the circumstances of parents being able to provide supervision to their students while they're at work becomes one of the concerns and strong problems that we've given a lot of consideration to. And that's why we were very much concerned about trying to develop a level of in-person instruction to support that process. However, the health conditions don't allow that at this time. Our position is to try to continue to review the concern and address it and find ways that we can support the parents in terms of assisting with their children. And that's why I said it's a very collaborative process at this point in time, more so than ever. But as time goes on, I think that, we've all had to make some sacrifices, but as time goes on, we have to find ways to address that.
Fantastic.
We really do.
Yeah. I'm going to shift gears with this question. Obviously, you have a lot of challenges on your plate. The district has a lot of challenges, and there's, COVID's brought real human challenges, both to the students, parents, teachers, administrators, everyone. But shifting gears, what does the budget look like for the school year ahead? Even before COVID, the budget was a very active question, facing headwinds like the state aid cut, the benefit of the new payroll tax. There's reports coming out that the payroll tax has been reduced from what was estimated. Where do you see the budget today? And and state and local governments have been getting slammed with reduced tax revenues due to COVID. Where do you see where do you see the BOE budget today, and where are we going with it through the next year?
Sure, that's a powerful question you asked there. And, the budget is always a consideration and concern in a district like ours. Jersey City has been a district that's been underfunded for a very long time. And so our concern has always been that we need to find other revenue streams to be able to assist us in the process of addressing the services to our students. We've taken advantage of various types of grants that have been made available to support us, to supplement some of the concerns that we have. The school funding formula, the philosophy is that, it's based upon the property wealth of the district. And in a city like Jersey City, we've had some major changes that have taken place over the years as far as that's concerned. And that's been a big part of the state's position, is that we should be more involved in providing our local fair share when it comes to the budget. But as I said, the state has underfunded us substantially for a number of years, and we don't see it changing, certainly going forward. And that's why the payroll tax that Senator Cunningham was very significant in making happen in Jersey City, which has certainly been a blessing for us, and it's been, key over the last few years. And certainly Mayor Fulop, has made sure that we've been able to provide, receive those funds, and we certainly appreciate that part. As I said, this is a collaborative process. We can't operate this by ourselves. So moving forward, and based on the question you asked, we have some real strong concerns. This year we benefited from the payroll tax. We benefited from an increased tax levy. That's one of the areas we've been going to, but we can't continue to go to that area because those sources will be running out. And certainly the pandemic has certainly affected that significantly, especially as far as the payroll tax is concerned. And, what we were looking for this year, and we were able to certainly work towards that as far as the funding source is concerned. But then having the pandemic, it took us, for another loop, because of the fact that we had what we thought we needed to at least operate this year in providing services that are needed to our students. But with the pandemic, the focus on providing those things that were necessary to deal with the schools in terms of equipment, supplies, the cleaning, and all those things that are associated with that, that took a significant part of our monies. Even though with the CARES Act, we still had to address those areas. And so we're still reeling, and we don't know the full effect of it, because we won't know it until we go through the year and see what the needs become, because we know that they're going to be greater than they've been. And we know that already based upon what we've done. We even on the website put up a CARES Act spending monitor so people can see exactly where the money is going, just in terms of preparation for the school and students coming back into the building. Going forward, we know that state aid is going to be reduced. We know that the payroll tax, as we move to the last phases of that process, still becomes a concern, especially with Jersey City being the only school at this point in time that has the availability of a payroll tax because of what our need is, and more important than that, because of the fact that we're receiving less state aid in this situation. So going into next year, we have some real concerns about what things will look like as far as staffing, as far as facilities. We have various plans to upgrade our facilities. We have, we have at least 15 buildings that are over 100 years old. We have a number of concerns that need to be upgraded, repairs, supports, and with technology being a concern at this point in time, and technology being the expense that it is, it also means, we're talking about promoting and reinforcing a significant infrastructure for technology. We know that many of our urban schools in Jersey City, being, right there up front, has faced the challenges of the digital divide with our students. And, we've been very fortunate to be able to bring it to the level that we are at this point in time, but in doing so, it's required a significant part of our budget, which means that there are some other areas that we have to make some adjustments in addressing, making some adaptations that, certainly impact the digital divide structure that we have in place. So going forward, yes, there's some real serious concerns we have as far as the budget. However, one of the things that this pandemic does, and certainly the elements of what's taken place with education, it really makes us, we certainly have to identify and be prepared for the future, but it really makes us address the immediate needs. We have to operate in the now. I mean, this is real time, things that are going on as far as what our concerns are, and it's really addressing the immediate needs of our students. In the background, we certainly are looking into the future and making an adjustment, but the immediate needs are so strong and glaring that we're putting all our efforts into right now. And as we move forward, we certainly have an eye on that, but we'll certainly address those issues in a timely manner. Our budget process starts, in a month or so as we start moving towards preparing for the following year. But right now, things are so immediate that it requires all of our attention to focus on what we're doing for our students right now.
I completely understand. Yeah. I mean, the dollars and cents are important, but the pandemic has brought certain needs that come straight to the foreground, and you're absolutely right. We need to address those before we can tackle other issues. There's two questions that I'm going to combine, and we'll finish it up with this. But going back again, student welfare, immediate needs. One is about the lunch and breakfast programs. How is food being distributed during the pandemic? I know there's been a program in place, I think, from when you close schools. And then the other question from Jennifer is about special education students. What about special education students and self-contained going back first? Potentially, when you do begin to reopen schools, what are the plans for special education students?
Sure, those are great questions. There were two things that the Department of Education and the governor said that we had to have once we closed schools. And those two things were, we had to continue education and we had to feed the children. There were two things that the governor and the Department of Education emphasized once we developed our reopening plans. And the reopening plans, no matter what they were, whether it was all remote, whether it was a hybrid schedule, was that we had to continue learning and we had to feed the students. And so based upon that, the Department of Agriculture also worked with the schools and provided waivers and gave us additional supports to make sure that we could comply with that regulation. So during the summer, we identified a number of sites that made it convenient for students to be able to come to those areas so they can pick up the breakfast and certainly the lunch. As we start back in September, we're now making sure that each of the schools have a location where the students will be able to come to that school and be able to pick up meals. And so based upon that, we recognize that there are students that receive special permission. There are students that are involved in various magnet programs throughout the city. So they may not be going to their home school, but the students have the opportunity to go to the closest site to pick up meals. And considering the fact that we're scheduled so that, especially now with classes going on, we make it available for them to be able to come and pick the meals up, but they will be able to pick up more than one meal, and they can pick up breakfast and lunch at the same time, but more than one meal when they pick it up, because we'll be serving, whereas before we serve almost every day, as we go through this process doing this all virtual, we'll be serving twice a week, but students will be able to pick up meals for the entire week during that period of time. And, again, it'll be convenient for them, so it will not be during a time where they're actually online with their teachers. But the schedules, again, are very similar to the schedules that students have when they're in school. And so during their lunch time and lunch breaks, they'll be able to go to the school site where the lunches are being stored and pick up the meals for that period of time or for those days, depending upon if it's the day where they're getting 2 sets of meals or the day where they're getting 3 sets of meals. But they'll be able to get in those 2 opportunities meals for the entire week. Certainly serving meals is significant. We recognize the importance of good nutrition and students being able to learn. So that becomes as significant as the learning process. With the question about students with disabilities, and yes, we've certainly thought about that like everything else in a very layered way. And initially, part of one of the plans we had proposed in the very beginning was trying to bring back our neediest population first. And that included students with disabilities because of the specialized needs they had. It also included English language learners. It also included students that could be identified as requiring just additional support services. And we thought about the various populations in terms of doing that under this situation here. However, because of the health concerns, the indication was for us, it wasn't in our best interest to bring back any population at this point in time. However, as I said before, we have a very fluid plan, and this here phasing structure we have, phase 1 to 5. Phase 2 says we're bringing back 33% of our population. In that 33%, that can include the predominance of students with disabilities. That can include a focus on students that have the greatest need, and certainly in that area they would. And so we have not ruled it out as of yet. We still have given strong consideration to that as a probability of bringing back certainly those students. We've thought of other concerns. For example, the students that are out of district, those students that have that need, they are, in fact, going to those sites. But we're talking about a very limited population, one that could be easily managed as far as safety and health concerns are at this point in time. But we will continue. We've made decisions. However, we're still reviewing our decision each and every day. And when we need to be able to make adjustments and tweak it, we're going to do it. The great part about this plan is that it is fluid, it is adaptable, and we can make changes in a moment's notice, to be able to support the needs of our students, parents, and community. And when I say we can make decisions at a moment's notice, we can make those decisions, but we certainly will make them. We will give everyone time to make the necessary adjustments so that it will be a seamless transition, depending upon what percentage of students we go back to in terms of in-person.
Well, thank you very much for that and all your responses today. I've shared the information again for where our members can get more information. So it's www.jcboe.org, and the hotline for any parent who's having issues with COVID-related instruction, 877-708-8195. And those are on the screen now if anybody needs to write them down or anything like that. But again, thank you very much for your time. It was really informative, really helpful to our members, and I really appreciate you joining us this morning.
So listen, thank you, and thank you so much for posting the hotline number up there, because this way, parents if they have an emergency question or need a quick response, as I said, within a 24-hour period, and certainly less than that, they'll get a response from us. So I appreciate your support in that process, and the Jones Square Community Association for inviting me to present some of this information. Hopefully that it's informative, so individuals will have the opportunity to know some of what's going on, and more important than that, access to information so they know where to go. So thank you very much for your support. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. So that concludes the speaker portion of the meeting. I have a few housekeeping things, some announcements for future events. We're going to skip the committee reports this week because we had, 4 speakers. We had a big agenda. It's a 12:45 right now. I'm personally trying to head down to Liberty State Park. Friends of Liberty State Park is having a rally to help protect it at noon. But upcoming events. First, I invite everybody who's watching this stream who thought this was informative, helpful, come back next month. We're going to keep rehosting them. Follow us on social media. Become a member. JSQCA.com. Dues are $25. They help pay for this service where we're posting the video so that we can get in touch with you, and support the other programs that help advance our mission. So yeah, if you're at all interested, become a member, join a committee. We just formed a new homelessness committee that's being headed by Steve Lipsky, to help outreach with that persistent issue that I know many members have talked to me about and talked about offline. So that's a really valuable thing to get a part of. But go to the website. You can learn more about our committees. You can get signed up, get involved, and we really appreciate it. Again, questions, comments, concerns, hello@jsqca.com is our new general inbox. Feel free to send any questions there. Also, if you're on a committee, you're going to notice we just were able to get Google G Suite up and running. So you're now going to be able to see the @jsqca.com emails coming out. We're going to get away from the ad hoc email addresses. It's all, all of our data is being hosted in one place. Kind of a process issue, but I'm pretty excited about it. But yeah, look for emails if you're on the, I don't want to give the wrong email address, but if you're on the transportation committee, it will say transportation@jsqca.com. So we're in the process of getting that set up, and the different committee heads will obviously let you know how those are being implemented. With that, I want to give an announcement on upcoming meetings, and I have a very high-tech slide that I can share with you guys. I hope this is readable. So our next meeting is Saturday, October 10th at 10 a.m. We're trying to host a candidate forum with the different Jersey City Board of Election candidates that are running for election this season. And then we're also invited Jeff Trezak, who's the director of the Jersey City Public Library. He was recently appointed, I believe, just before COVID. He's been rolling out new programs, and then obviously the library system has had to adapt to the pandemic. And he's going to come tell you about their programs and take your questions, as always. Next Monday, September 14th, our History Committee at 7 p.m. will be hosting a forum on the Columbus statue. There's a Columbus statue near the fountain in Journal Square, right there where SIP meets Kennedy Boulevard. And there's been a lot of recent debate and discussion about what role that statue plays in Journal Square, whether it's appropriate where it is. Obviously there's a big discussion around race and, re-examining our national history, our national myths. And the History Committee felt that this is a good forum for that conversation. Whether you're in favor of keeping it or whether you're in favor of removing it, I think it's very important that everybody comes out and has the conversation. It's going to be streamed the same on this platform over Facebook and YouTube and on Twitter. So we can take your questions just like they are here. And I assume there's going to be a healthy amount of participation. And then James, the chair of the History Committee, we've invited guests who are on different sides of the issue. People who've signed a petition to have it removed, and then other people who, participated in a public letter to ask for it to remain. So we're trying to hear different sides and better educate our members, better educate the community for whatever decision we end up making going forward. Obviously, it is not a decision that the Journal Square Community Association will make alone. It's not our statute. It's not our decision. But we wanted to host a conversation so the general public can be better informed. And then on top of that, the Green Committee meeting will be on Wednesday, September 16th at 7 p.m. Bill will be sending out, I believe he's already sent out an announcement for it with the link to participate. And again, if there's any committee meetings you guys want to know about, just get in touch with the committee chairs, comment below, and we'll try and put you in touch if you don't know who the chair is. And then, of course, go to the website, JSQCA.com, and you can sign up to become a member there if you're not already. And with that, I have concluded the agenda. So I believe that's going to end the September meeting of the Journal Square Community Association. Thank you, everybody, for coming on, logging on, watching. The video is going to be saved for posterity, so you can share it with your friends, family members, neighbors. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Have a great day. All right, have a good weekend.